Well, here we go, my friends. As usual, I'm not sure where to start. I've made a lot of videos over the years, of course, and most of them are somewhat researched or talked about in my head, I guess, ahead of time. No pun intended. But in a lot of cases like this, sometimes I just have to kind of go off the cuff, and because of that, I often get misinterpreted, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But it starts off with the "don't shoot the messenger." That was something I was looking at earlier, and it's really funny. I had I was reading this page about the original meaning back in ancient war times. The messenger would come to say, "Oh, this army's coming, or these people are coming, or your soldiers are all dead," whatever it might be. And often the commanders would get frustrated, and so naturally they would take it out on the messenger. Most of us can figure out that's a pretty basic, reasoning. It's pretty cut and dry. Then there was the story of this king. This king who, when the messenger came to tell him that there was war or there was a problem, he would have the person executed. And this continued until people stopped bringing him bad news. Basically, he would only accept news that flattered him, and he ignored the rest of the world. And I thought, how very similar is that to my own president? And that's how I feel about it. But when you start talking about politics, when you start talking about anything that's going on, we have hit a very divisive nature where we have drawn upon this frustration that we have towards our government, towards each other, really I should say, mostly towards the rules, regulations, and laws that keep us from doing what we will and what we please, that favor the rich, the wealthy. But I want to start off by saying honesty does not equal, honesty doesn't equal truth. And I think that's really important for all of us to realize. Just because you're honest doesn't mean that what you're saying is true. And this is because people can be misinformed. I mean, it's obvious that somebody has to be wrong, no matter how strongly they feel about their religion. If one religion is wrong, let's say in certain instances, the other has to be wrong. Or the other has to be, if one is right, the other has to be wrong, rather. That leaves a lot open for interpretation. People could say all religions are right in their own way, but that's nonsense, and we know it. It's not all right. Some people have certain beliefs that are completely off the wall, and it really doesn't matter unless it casts others under a shadow and makes others seem inferior or lesser people because they believe something different. This is what's also happened in politics. There was a time when people could be divided on issues and still say, well, I'll listen to you. And so the reason why honesty doesn't equal truth is because we can lie to ourselves. And there's a lot of propaganda out there. We're all well aware of it. One of the hardest things for today is for people to admit their errors. And I feel like we're living in a time when it's worse than ever. And I'm going to get to the reasons why I feel that it's nothing new. It's always been this way. It's just that it's become much more prevalent in the age of the internet because people who previously may have said nothing, all of a sudden have a voice, and so they're going to speak their mind. And I respect that. I think that's great. It gives us a better view of whether people really know what's going on, whether they're ignorant, whether they create their own reality like the rest of us, I guess, or whether there is a collective awareness that we all have to aspire to. Let me rephrase that. As when we're younger, we often are taught that once you get to a certain point, or at least it's insinuated that once we're at a certain age, we'll learn what life's all about, that we'll have it figured out. We'll get an education, all of a sudden we'll come of age, whatever that means. Coming of age means absolutely nothing. If there's any young people watching this out there, embrace what you have and embrace your passions and your motivation now, because it doesn't get any better. We just become more disillusioned or deluded in our older years. as we create our own realities. It's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that we all become idiots. I'm saying that we become stuck in our routines, our rituals, what we think is important in life. So, admitting our errors is not a strong point of Americans, at least. No, most humans don't want to admit that they made a mistake in judgment, a mistake in their lives, and so we just kind of go on and go on. Now, I've made plenty of mistakes, and it's usually not something I've done, but something I haven't done, or an awareness I did not have about something that I should have. And I'm very cautious when I talk politically, so even bringing up politics in this video, of course I'm going to get hate for that, but I don't care, because it's honest. And honest feelings, they're not always based in facts. And that includes my own, and I'm aware of that. I really try to understand people. As much as I may be misunderstood, I still try to understand other people because I feel it's better for me and for them. And that's why when I said don't shoot the messenger, it's how I feel sometimes when I talk about certain subjects, and I realize that some people are going to hate me for it. There was a month recently where I had to talk about politics because it was important to me. And I lost a lot of subs that instead of gaining my usual 30 or 40 on average a month, I lost like 40. I thought to myself, awesome. These are people who unsubscribed because they didn't want to hear my viewpoint. But then I looked back on my videos and I thought, okay, well, I was a little brutal and harsh. Look, I'm a human being. And as I said, I go off the top of my head. I make mistakes too. I've said shit that maybe gets misinterpreted, misunderstood. It's very important for my subscribers to realize that I don't know any more than you do. I just know my reality. But we all trust in somebody, right? And I know that people trust in my judgment, so I try to keep it reasonable. Try to do my research, right? So, I want to get to America. We're told to work hard. There's this saying, pull up your bootstraps. I wanted to bring this up. People say, oh, pull up your bootstraps and get to work. I said, do you realize what that means? That's totally misinterpreted. You cannot pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. They're straps on your boots. You can't lift yourself by your own boots. The whole point of that was totally misunderstood. It means that you do need help sometimes. It means that you can't always do things. Some things are difficult or impossible. It's the reality. But Generation X, my gen, and moving into, the millennial, what they define as millennial generation, we're told you can do anything. Go to college, you can be anything you want. And we were told that we can do anything we want if we just put our minds to it. And then this whole Gen Y came to fruition, that all the college age kids of today are suffering through the worst situation when it comes to jobs, education that we've ever had. America has slipped to like 40th or something, or 30th on the scale of, Western countries or countries that have good education. I mean, we are way down on the list on science, on education, production, on everything. And so, not to diss on America, but there's this blind patriotism that we have. And a lot of people are following a leader who, basically says whatever he wants to say. And whether it matters or not, whether it's truthful or not, I I try to understand that concept, the concept of respect for a strong man. And I get it. I understand. We want somebody who's going to be an outsider, who's going to shake up Washington. But look, it's been 4 years now. We have the same crying on Twitter and ranting about Democrats and Obama and all these things. And it's like, can't we just move forward? And so here we are in a new election season. And I feel like, should I talk about politics? Should I not? And I know people are going to ask. And I guess I should lay it out there. I'm not a big fan of Joe Biden. He picked Kamala Harris the other day to be his VP. It was probably a good choice, a black woman. I mean, people want progress. But half of America does not want progress. Because what they see progress is And I'm not saying that in an insulting way. I'm saying that I'm hoping people can understand me. If you're a conservative, you know where I'm coming from. I have conservative viewers. I get it. You want things to remain the same because consistency is important. And what I've found is that balance between that consistency of conservatism and the slight change of liberalism, like maybe moving to solar, more clean energy, these things can be reconciled. We can work together. You see what I mean? It's not a battle that we have to have. We don't have to fight amongst each other. You know, every president in my lifetime is all I've experienced. You know, Bush Sr., um, he was all right. He was a douchebag, though, and he caused war and sent soldiers off to war. Then we had Clinton. You know, in retrospect, he was a pretty cool dude, right? But he was an asshole, and he was probably a pedo, and he was a douchebag. They enacted some of the worst, like, anti-crime legislation. A lot of people say, look at what the Clintons did to, you know, black people or, you know, in prisons. The truth is, in 1992, it was the worst year of crime America had ever had. It's a fact. You can look it up. And since then, it's actually gone down. We do have a lot of crime. So, in other words, what I'm saying is when Democrats are too loose on crime, the Republicans complain about it. When they're too tough on crime, the Republicans complain about it. And when the Republicans do something that helps the people, the Democrats complain about it. When they do something not to help the people or to take away their money, the Democrats complain about it. Here we are stuck in this two-party system. What do you do? Honestly, the Democrats have just, the DNC is not the Democratic Party, and I think people should realize that. The Democratic National Convention is a completely different thing, where the Democratic you know, commissions, the different little groups that they have, they're different groups that are basically, a lot of them are just anti-right wing, anti-Trump, whatever it might be. And I see this causing even more division because it's just a constant battle in politics. So, kindness is needed. Kindness, respect for one another, a little bit of patience, even just like a millimeter of patience, or is that, it's probably like 2 millimeters of patience, might be a good thing. I feel like we need to help each other more, but if you look closer, we do, in all communities. If you're a conservative in a conservative community and you have a hurricane, a tornado, whatever it might be, you help each other, right? In liberal communities, when there's homeless people or people in need of help, totally different problems, they help each other. We help each other, all of us, because that's what we do. And to see that common ground within mankind is, I think, way more important than seeing the differences. But as long as we're divided, it's like a divide and conquer strategy that people have used. God, it's just, painful, you know, to watch what's going on right now. It's okay to have our self-esteem beaten down for being wrong or making a mistake. But sometimes we don't make a mistake. People seem to know what they want and what they're after. So, to move on here. You know, as I said, we're afraid to admit that we've been lied to so often. I mean, just look at QAnon. I mean, there's somebody out there who listened to this and probably is a QAnon believer. All of their prophecies have been complete nonsense. It's just a way to sell t-shirts and merchandise. I mean, that's what everything is these days. When we get past believing these big heroes, there are no heroes. That's my point, okay? There are people who do their own thing. They live their lives. They try to share in their moment of glory or fame, whatever it might be. And thank God I'm not a person who has millions of people who rely on my every word. I would hate that. There are a lot of YouTubers out there who really have the opposite view. A lot of people who all they want to do is be heard by as many people as possible. I just want to have discussions with people, as many people as possible, but without, and listen to what they have to say. Even though I can't answer every comment, and I don't, you know, over the years times have changed and it makes it harder to answer everybody's comments, but I listen and I read every one and I think, I want to know what makes people tick. and why we are the way we are to have a better world. And so I realized that a lot of people today are looking for a strong man, somebody tough who can fix things. And a lot of other people are looking to tear down everything that is strongman related. And I think both sides are misguided. I think that we do need heroes, but I personally have none, and so I can understand how people are anti-hero. The superhero syndrome is strong within us because we all want acceptance. That means we want somebody who we believe is working for us. The idea of a superhero is somebody who stops bullshit to help people. And all we want to do is be helped by each other. But often we need to help ourselves. And that's difficult. We really just want to be accepted and have common respect. And I think that that's something we should all be afforded. Be kind to one another. You know, that sounds so cheesy, but it's so true. I'd like to say this. This is important to me. There are a lot of, let's just say, conservative bikers, Harley Davidson riders, dudes with bandanas, big beards, go out to Sturgis, ride around. The kind of guy who says, I don't need a mask, I don't need a helmet, I don't need anything, I'm just doing my thing. Whatever happens, happens. I respect that. I do. That is freedom. Fine. So be it. Most bikers, or a lot of bikers, not most, sorry, are the dudes who act tough, the toughest, you know, the weightlifters, the buff guys, are complete softies and just teddy bears inside. And I love that. When you get to know people covered in tats and dressed in leather, they can be the sweetest dudes. On that same note, there are a lot of hippies, let's just say, because I grew up going to Grateful Dead and Fish shows, and I still do. A lot of, quote, hippie, peace-loving guys and girls who are complete shitbags, rude, angry, violent, and mean. Just like you see in some of the protesters who aren't really protesters. They're just dudes who are looking to cause trouble and start fires. There are totally soft bikers and there are totally mean hippies. The point being, these are just generalizations, obviously, stereotypes, but it makes the point that we can't judge people by their exterior. A guy in a tie-dye next to a guy on a motorcycle. The guy in the tie-dye might be a total shitbag. I mean, a heroin dealer next to a guy on a bike. You're like, oh, one of those guys is a junk dealer, and then the guy on the bike turns out to be a born-again Christian who has been giving to his community, you know, or donating his time. We misjudge each other so much, and it's sad. When I was growing up, we said, never talk about politics or religion at work. And that's been extended now from politics and religion to politics, religion, race relations, immigration, or race in general, authority, and wealth disparity, even music. And especially science. Science has become a contentious argument between people of whether it's even real or not, or whether the scientific method even is a valid way to perceive the world. I don't know what to think anymore. I have to think the way I always have, which is on my own. Once I think that I can relate to people, then I find that I can't as much as I thought I did. But I think that one of the biggest issues, the number one, like, ding, star here, this is important, is one of the biggest problems we have is that we assume we know how others feel and think. Like I said, I've never used Twitter until a few weeks back. I decided to get on there to see what it was like to post shit. And as I expected, it's a cesspool of people who just make assumptions in a lot of cases. Now, there are plenty of places where I'm sure everybody just respects one another. In the point, if you want to talk about politics in any way, shape, or form, and you want to insult the system or the politicians, the people who are obsessed with those politicians, like the Trump supporters, will come back and insult you personally. one guy posted like 2 different pictures of, what was that guy's name? The guy always said, hey, Vern. I can't remember. He wore a hat. He's like, oh, you look like this guy, but without the beard. And then I was like, oh, how mature. He's like, well, oh, well, don't be offended. You liberals are always this. And I always tell people, you might be surprised to find that I'm a long-haired, hippie-looking dude that wears tie-dyes, but you can't consider me a liberal or a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a libertarian. I just think for myself, and you can't get away with that anymore. You can't just be who you are. You have to be labeled. And if that's what makes people feel more comfortable, so be it. So real harm is being done by idiots with power today. And one of those biggest failures in my mind was Trump. And it's because all the things he said he was going to do for the people, giving us the greatest health care, which I still don't have, that he was going to get the drug companies to drop all their prices to super cheap, he still hasn't done. And all these things that the last minute he's trying to come up and say, if you just give me another 4 years, I'll do. And I'm laughing thinking, you won't do it because you don't care. The people he's put in charge of the EPA are ex-coal people. The people in charge of the post office, he's basically claimed that he's going to shut down the post office or defund them now because he's afraid of mail-in ballots. And I know every Trump supporter will say, well, mail-in, invites fraud. Bullshit. Come on, let's be honest here. Look at the real statistics. My state has mail-in ballots exclusively all the time. We have done this for years. It's no new thing. But if you purposefully say that you're going to defund the Postal Service in order to sabotage the ability for us to do mail-in voting, that's basically treason, in my opinion. And I feel like we're just accepting that. People are just going with it, going, I know that's not right inside, but if my president says it, it must be true. And that's the strongman syndrome. That's the problem we have. And that goes back to don't kill the messenger. I'm just telling you what you already know, whether you're a Trump supporter or a hater. I mean, I try to look at it neutrally. I've given the guy 4 years to do something. And like I said, I'm not big on Joe either, but when people say sleepy Joe Biden, I just say, well, honestly, at this point, I'd rather have somebody just sleeping in the White House all the time. In fact, if he fell asleep for this full term, I'd be cool with that too, because I don't feel like we need a leader anymore. We're our own leaders. And in today's world, people have always believed stupid things. It's just that it's come out and it's become more clear with the internet and more apparent. So, believe nothing 100%. Believe no person 100%. Question everything. Question my thoughts. Question what I say. Just like you would question Alex Jones, question the president, question Biden, question anybody. Because basically, you have to ask what a person has to gain by lying to you or telling you the truth. And in my case, since I really have nothing to gain, I just say what I have to say. And if you like it, you like it. And if you don't, you think I'm a total douchebag, good for you. Take care.